how an army plane has crashed in Rajasthan. We are trying to get further details. So far, we understand that the pilot's body was found in the wreckage. Now, what exactly has caused this crash is something that is yet to be determined. But so far, we understand that it was an army plane that has crashed in Rajasthan. Those are the pictures that India Today has accessed of the debris that is now on the ground and of the destruction that it leaves behind, where many of these civilians who just rushed to the spot after the army plane crashed in Rajasthan. What exactly led to that crash? Was it a technical snag? And what is the condition right now as the debris is being cleared? Let me cut across to Devankur, joining us with further details of what this army plane was, where did it crash, how many people were inside it. The pilot's body has been found in the wreckage is what we understand.
Well, clearly at this point in time, the preliminary information that has come in is that a fighter plane of the Indian Air Force has crashed in Balunda area of Churu. The pilot, as per the information, has not been able to survive the crash. This is the preliminary information that has come in so far. The crash, the unfortunate incident, has happened in Churu district of Rajasthan. Further information is expected to arrive soon.
Continue talking to us, Devankur, as we stay with those pictures that have come in from Churu in Rajasthan. And the first video, I believe, that has been taken that puts out the extent of damage and destruction after this plane that crashed. Officials and police team who already left for the crash site as they take control of what is happening on the ground. What more do you know?
Well, absolutely. At this point in time, the information that has reached us is that the fighter jet that has crashed in Churu district of Rajasthan, it happened right now. There is no information of any casualty on any civilian casualty on the ground. But in the unfortunate crash that happened in Churu, as per the information that is available with us so far, the pilot has not been able to survive the crash. This is the preliminary information that is with us right now. One should not speculate on this matter, and also at this point in time, the information that has arrived so far is preliminary. It is kind of not complete at this point in time, and the official information is yet to come in on the matter.
Absolutely, and we wait for an official statement on the very same, while we stay away from any sort of speculation, but just trying to get details from you that you've learned prima facie of what is happening at the spot. This is in Churu in Rajasthan, where an army plane has crashed, is what we understand. The pictures that clearly suggest that the debris and the wreckage that is now being cleared. Locals rush to that spot where the crash happened. Officials and police team also have left for the crash site. This is in Churu in Rajasthan. Devankur, I believe it is Ratangarh and a village close by. Just to understand from you, were residential areas very close? Was this like an open barren ground where the crash has happened? Which base did that plane take off from? And what more are you picking up from your sources of how many were on board in that plane?
Well, as far as the information that has reached us so far, the pilot was there in that plane when the crash happened. He was not able to survive the crash. There is no information of any casualty on the ground. Why the crash happened, what was the reason behind it, all of this is a matter of investigation, and I'm sure that the Indian Air Force will conduct a thorough investigation in the matter. A court of inquiry may be ordered in this
right.
case, but as I mentioned,
in fact, it is a developing story, and I also want to tell all our viewers that we are getting information as we continue to put it out. I'm just being told it was not an army plane. A plane crash that has been reported where the wreckage has been found in Churu in Rajasthan. Now, what sort of a plane it was? Dev, do you have more details on that? All right, not too sure if Devankur is still connected with us, but let's quickly tell all our viewers of what we've learnt. It was a plane crash. It was not an army plane. Now, what was the nature of that plane is something we're still trying to get further details on. So far we can confirm that a plane has crashed in Rajasthan's Churu. This has happened near a village in that area. The video that clearly suggests that the locals immediately rushed to the spot when the plane crashed. So far, it is also confirmed that the pilot's body was found in the wreckage, but we are yet to get details of how many people were actually on board in that plane when it crashed. What was the reason that it crashed? Was it a technical snag or something else that led to that crash? But so far, we understand that the wreckage is now being cleared, and police and other officials who quickly have rushed to the spot as they are trying to take control of what is happening on the ground. There you see, so far we assess that it is barren land where this plane has crashed, and to the depths of what we can see in this particular video, not really visible if it was any sort of a residential area or a village where you know, there were homes and people close by. But one thing also coming to light of how the locals rushed to the spot immediately as the plane crashed. I believe Devankur is back with us and he's joining us live on the broadcast now. Dev, where are you right now? What more are you picking up? Because we understand that the plane crashed. Eyewitnesses say that these are agricultural fields where the plane has crashed. We are trying to determine what sort of a plane it was. Was it a passenger plane or was it a smaller plane? How many people were on board?
As I mentioned earlier, one should not speculate at this point in time, but the initial information is that the plane, the pilot has not been able to survive this crash. I'm right now in Jaipur, but I can tell you that this incident happened in Churu, in Ratangarh area of Churu district of Rajasthan, and the information is that as per now, no casualty of any civilian on the ground has been reported in this matter. And till the time the official information arrives, one should not get into any kind of conjecture on this matter. Official information is still awaited on this matter. The information is that the pilot has not been able to survive the crash.
Completely understand, and we only put out details of what is confirmed so far. I understand that we await other information on what exactly was the size of that plane and why it was flying from this particular area. How many were on board is not confirmed, but like you tell us, Devankur, that no civilian who has been reported dead in this crash. The pilot unfortunately has not been able to survive this crash, and eyewitnesses claim that there was fire in the agricultural fields. So thankfully, the damage was minimized given the fact that this wasn't a residential area. These were open agricultural fields where the plane crashed. Is that right?
Well, as per information, some of the people in the nearby area rushed to the spot when the fire started billowing from the aircraft, and in fact, the information also suggests that body parts were seen strewn around, and that is the preliminary information. That is unconfirmed information. I repeat, this is unconfirmed information. Official information is yet to come in on the matter, why the crash took place and whether anyone has been able to from who was inside the aircraft has been able to survive the crash so far or not is also yet unknown. The pilot unfortunately has not been able to survive the crash as far as the preliminary information is concerned, and any further information can be revealed officially, and once that is done, it would be proper to lay out that information to the viewers of India Today. Thank you.
All right, Devankur getting us those details as we also show you this first video that India Today has been able to access of that crash. Now, you see this video carefully and what it reveals so far. Now, we stay away from any sort of speculation because we are still awaiting details of the kind of plane that it was and how many were on board. But one thing that Devankur has confirmed that no civilian casualties have been reported. Here you see how the person who's recording this video, the wreckage of the plane that has been found. Now, so far, eyewitnesses claim that this was an open agricultural field, and that is very clear because you see vast green stretches of land spreading all throughout for as far as that our eyes can see. Also, you see how so many locals just rush to the spot when they must have realized that the crash has happened, or that loud noise that must have come, and they've rushed to the spot. This is the wreckage of the plane, and slowly as the camera moves, you'll be able to see a big part of the wreckage that has clearly been caught on camera. Now, you see how a lot of these locals are standing close, and this entire area of this agricultural field that is burnt. So that just determines the extent of the damage that had happened after this plane crash. And here, right here, you see this big patch of ground that is black where the grass is burnt. In fact, you also see that big cloud of smoke right there. So it is hard to determine where exactly was the impact of the crash the most, but the video certainly shows that it could probably be this side, because those stretches of land that are still very green, and this particular area, this particular stretch that you see is where the plane may have crashed. Now, we have confirmed that it is not an army plane, but what sort of a plane was it, how many were on board, is something we are still waiting for details. But this has happened in Churu district in Rajasthan. And this very video from the accident site, for obvious reasons, the person who's recording this video, and it is slightly shaky, but certainly suggests to what happened there. You see the wreckage of the plane in these pictures, the plane that may have completely disintegrated due to the impact of the crash, and also fire that is still visible in parts, as this could have been a video that may have been captured a little after the crash happened, as you see many of those locals who just rushed to the spot, a lot of them living in the nearby village, who may have quickly rushed here. Now, one thing is clear, that this is an open land, because apart from the area where the crash has happened, the other stretches that remain green, but this particular area where the impact may have been the maximum is where you see that the land is completely burnt. Let me also bring in my colleague Shivani Sharma joining us on the broadcast with further details of what this plane was. Shivani, what more are you picking up from your sources? The pilot unfortunately has not been able to survive this crash, but who all were on board?
Swesha, see, it seems to be a service craft and most probably an Indian Air Force craft, but we are still waiting for confirmation from the Indian Air Force on this. And from the wreckage, what we can see and witness, it seems that it was a crash on the field where the pilots must have tried to evade to crash on the areas where people were living. And this was a fighter aircraft. That's what the sources are also indicating. But we'll still be waiting for confirmation, Suesha, on this, because we have to wait for an official word from the Indian Air Force on this. And what the Indian Air Force has been telling us, that they're ascertaining the details, and only then they will be making the news and making the confirmations about this crash that has happened here in Rajasthan. But certainly this seems to be a service aircraft and most probably an Indian Air Force's craft. And what the debris and what the situation on ground seems, that it is quite a severe situation where it can be possible that the pilot was also there, has lost his life. But yes, we are waiting for an official word on this.
Absolutely, Shivani, and I completely understand we are waiting for an official confirmation. But really, to understand what may have happened, if you could also explain to our viewers where the closest airbase was, because we are picking up that it was a Jaguar fighter jet that has crashed in Rajasthan, as per agency reports that have come to light, where the pilot's body was found in the wreckage. So Shivani, I come back to my question. Where is the closest airbase from where this Jaguar may have flown from? And the pilot who was certainly on board, but who else could have been in that craft? How far could this particular area be where the crash has happened? And you're absolutely right, we await further details of whether it was a technical snag or what may have gone wrong. But what more are you picking up on this front?
See, it could be possible. First, we have to identify which aircraft it was, the one which has crashed. Where did it fly from? All this will only be clear. But yes, as we can predict from the vicinity of the place where it has crashed, it seems to be a crash from close to the Rajasthan border, one of the bases that Rajasthan has, which Indian Air Force has along the western border. And most of them are quite active and operational. There could be possibilities that it was in one of those air bases along the western border, Suesha. But still, we have to see that what was the situation, what was the reason for this crash, and the standard operating procedure goes that as soon as a crash happens, the details are first ascertained, and then a court of inquiry is ordered. The court of inquiry then tries to investigate into the reasons of the crash, and only then it can be told why this crash happened. Was this a technical glitch or some other reason? So we have to wait for all that. But yes, the procedure says that as soon as the crash happens, first the details are ascertained, and then the court of inquiry is ordered, and more information can only be divulged once we get an official word from this.
Oh yes, absolutely, Shivani, and we do await that. But so far, agency reports that suggest that it was a Jaguar fighter jet that crashed. Shivani, I quickly want to understand further details because so far information coming in of how the impact of the crash may have been so strong that it turned into a fireball and may have led to casualties immediately. Even in the videos that India Today has accessed of how so many of these locals have rushed to the spot, but it may have been a while after the crash and how its impact may have been.
Certainly, Suesha, this usually takes, when these kind of crashes happen, we usually see that the pilots who are on board, they try to evade the places which are crowded on ground to avoid casualties, of course. And here also it seems that the operational sortie which was going on of this fighter air jet, and now it seems that more defense sources are also quoting that they are indicating that it was a Jaguar fighter that has crashed near Churu in Rajasthan. Further details are of course being ascertained, but yes, this could be a possibility that there can be a technical glitch or some other reasons why this crash happened. And usually when this happens, the pilots on the fighter jets, they try to keep people safe on ground, and that's why you see the wreckage, the debris on ground, which is on a field which is away from any village out there. As we can see, this is an area which is a rural area in Rajasthan, in Churu, Suesha. So it is very important to understand what was the situation when this crash happened, what was the kind of glitch that took place, or there was some other reason for this particular crash. So we usually wait for details that come from the official sources, why this crash happened, what was the maintenance situation of this particular fighter jet, and in what the situation it was flying. Was this an operational sortie or a trainee sortie? So this all has to be ascertained. But yes, certainly the fighter jet, we've seen a number of crashes in past few years where most of the pilots have tried to evade casualties on ground. And here also it seems that the pilot who was flying this particular Jaguar tried to take this away into a place where people keep safe on ground where the debris fall.
Shivani, we are also picking up details of how officials from the Indian Army and Air Force are also on their way to this site. IAF's Jaguar fighter jet that crashed in Rajasthan, fighter jet that took off from Suratgarh Air Base is what we are picking up, where the pilot's body was found in the wreckage at the crash site. Shivani, if I could come back to you for more details on the same.
What the sources are telling us that this was an Indian Air Force's fighter jet and Jaguar Air Force fighter which took off from Suratgarh in Rajasthan, which happens to be an important air base for Indian Air Force, where this sortie was going on. And right now we can see that wreckage is there. The officials are already on the spot, including the police officials of Rajasthan in Suratgarh, the local authorities out there. They're trying to assess the situation. They are trying to take out more details, and the people are trying to people are being moved away from this whole crash site. But certainly this Jaguar which crashed took off from Suratgarh. That's what the sources are telling us, which happens to be an important location or an important air base in Rajasthan, the western border that has remained quite active since last few months. We've seen how during Operation Sindoor also the whole western border was active operationally, and this Jaguar fighter jet was also an asset that was based out of the western border in Suratgarh, from where it took off for this sortie. Whether this was an operational sortie or this was a twin-seater fighter jet which was training another pilot, that we have to confirm, Suesha. But yes, this fighter jet has crashed, and another unfortunate Indian Air Force's loss, where we have to see that what was the reason after the court of inquiry completes the investigation.
Oh yes, extremely unfortunate, Shivani. In fact, we are also picking up details of how officials of the Indian Army and Air Force are on their way to the site. Rescue operations are underway. The locals who had heard a loud explosion after this jet had crashed. This has happened near Ratangarh town, near Bhanuda village, and the crash in particular, where the impact has been in an agricultural field. They heard that loud explosion, and that was followed by plumes of smoke rising from the crash site as the rescue teams are on the spot clearing the debris. Shivani.
छोटा-छोटा टुकड़ा है, बाकी कोई बड़ी चीज तो एक माइन दिख रही है।
Yes, Suesha, what we see here is, and the eyewitnesses, they say that they heard a loud explosion in this particular village, where they went, and when they saw that there was a fighter jet, it was into flames, it crashed, and the people informed the authorities immediately. And what we are being told, Suesha, that along with the local authorities and the police in this area, the Indian Army or troops who were closest to this location have also rushed to the spot, and the Indian Army choppers are also being mobilized to this place for rescue operations, and the Indian Air Force officials are also reaching the spot to ascertain the details of this crash. What was the reason? What's the condition of the pilots out there? If there were two pilots, what is the condition of both the pilots, and what is the situation right now out there? What was the sortie condition? What was the situation? What was the whole situation that led to this crash? That can only be asserted after the investigation takes place. But certainly the court of inquiry will be ordered after the details have been ascertained about this particular crash. But yes, this is an unfortunate crash that has happened, and the people out there in the village, they have been telling the reporters on ground that they heard a loud sound, a loud explosion, and when they saw that this was a wreckage, they could make out that this was a service craft, because the body or the debris of the craft were quite alike a service craft, and most probably the Indian Air Force's craft that happens to be a Jaguar fighter.
Shivani, do stay on with us, because we are accessing more and more videos that give us a sense of what is happening at the crash site. Now, this particular video that indicates that these are vast stretches of land. This is agricultural land primarily, and this is where the impact of the crash seems to be the maximum. You see how the fire is still on. In fact, there's a small road that is also being seen in this particular stretch, could be a connecting road, and there you see how the other areas continue to be green. So that particular spot that you saw is where the impact may have been the maximum. This is the wreckage of the plane that may have flung far, given how the impact of the crash may have been, and so many of these locals who had heard a loud explosion. That's when they rushed to the spot. They all came from the nearby areas, a connecting road that you see, and this particular spot where you see how there is a huge circle of land, black, charred, and the fire that is still on. Now remember, we are learning that the police teams, the authorities, the rescue personnel who are all on the site, they're clearing off the debris, and also Indian Army officials, Air Force officials who are on their way to this particular site. The cause of the crash that has still not been determined yet, and due procedure that will be followed. Also, there has been no confirmation yet on how many were on board. However, it has been confirmed the pilot has not been able to survive this crash in his body that was found in the wreckage. But many of these locals who rushed to the spot, this is the Ratangarh area, a close by village which is the Bhanuda village, and large stretches of agricultural land. Probably also the reason that if the craft lost control, which was a Jaguar fighter jet, then the pilots may have decided to have it land at that particular spot, because if there was a crash, then the impact would have been minimized and there would have been lesser loss of lives. Shivani, I want to come back to you as we access more and more of these videos to get a sense of what is happening at the spot. What more are you picking up from your sources in the Army and the Air Force on when the jet had taken off, when it crashed, and what more, of what they know could have led to the crash?
So, as I was telling you, that when this incident was reported after the villagers heard that explosion and they informed the local authorities, the police along with the other officials, the local authorities, they reached at the spot. There were still flames, the videos of which we can see that this fighter jet that happens to be a Jaguar of the Indian Air Force that flew from Suratgarh. This all is the information that we've gathered from the sources. We are still waiting for an official confirmation from the Indian Air Force, Swesha. But certainly what the situation looks like on ground seems to be quite serious, where we are still trying to gather more details about the condition of the pilots out there in this particular Jaguar. And the Indian Army troops both on the ground as well as the choppers have been mobilized to this whole spot for the rescue operations, as the locals remain there. The villagers in Ratangarh area who have been witnessing this particular crash that happened in the morning today, a few hours earlier. So this seems that the sortie must have taken minutes before this crash happened. This could be an operational sortie, or this could be a routine sortie. This could be a trainer sortie. So we are waiting for more details from the Indian Air Force on this. But certainly the rescue operations are going on ground with integrated effort from the Indian Air Force as well as the Indian Army, the local units out there on ground, and along with the police, the Rajasthan police there. And this is very important, Swesha, because the proximity of this particular Suratgarh Air Force base is important to understand. This has been an operational area quite close to the Pakistan border. We've seen how all the Indian Air Force assets have been active, and they've been training actively in this whole region with all their bases activated right after the Operation Sindoor took place, and even before that, because this happens to be a sensitive border, Swesha. So training keeps happening in all these air bases which are on the western border, the Pakistan border particularly, and Jaguar also was flying there in this whole proximity. So when this fighter jet took off and when exactly the crash happened, that needs to be confirmed with the Indian Air Force. But yes, the rescue operations have already started on ground. The situation of the pilot also needs to be known, and very important out here is that whenever such crash happens, the first response of the Indian Air Force is to first ascertain the details, and then a code of inquiry is ordered to know about the reasons for this crash. Was it a technical glitch? Was it some other reason? That takes little time, Swesha, but most important is to understand the situation of the men who were there in the craft, whether this was a single pilot fighter jet or it was a twin-seater. So we have to check with the Indian Air Force for those details. But yes, as more and more sources are indicating more information we are gathering, it was a fighter jet of the Indian Air Force, a Jaguar fighter, and it was flying from the Suratgarh Air Base in Rajasthan, and Ratangarh is the area where in a village it has crashed. But important to note, Swesha, that this has crashed in a vacant field where the people were not present there. So the the pilot has tried to minimize the casualties on ground, and that's what we can see here.
All right, Shivani, this is Anisha on this side, and we're keeping a very close eye on what is happening with the IAF Jaguar fighter jet crash. Devankar is on the line with me, but the breaking news that we are following on this bulletin is the IAF Jaguar fighter jet crash in Rajasthan's Churu. The fighter jet took off from the Suratgarh Air Base, and the pilot's body has been found in the wreckage crash site. And we are bringing you the videos that have come out from the crash site in Churu, the images of the debris that has been found. It was heard, the explosion was heard by the local villagers after the IAF jet took off from the Suratgarh Air Base, and these are the videos that are coming out from the crash site. Devankar is with me on the phone line on this story. Devankar, what more do we know about the pilot and who else was on this flight?
Well, Anisha, at this point in time, the preliminary information that we have received is that this crash happened in a relatively remote area. So far, there has been no information whatsoever of any casualty on the ground of any civilian. The preliminary information also maintains that the pilot has not been able to survive the crash. Also, this was, as per information, a Jaguar fighter aircraft of the Indian Air Force. The Indian Air Force is likely to order a court of inquiry in the matter, and any further information, once it is received, can be relayed to the viewers of India Today. But at this point in time, it is better not to speculate. The information that we have so far is that some of the people who were there in the nearby areas rushed to the crash site. Senior officials of the Churu administration of Churu police are also at the crash site so far. Whether anyone has been able to survive the crash from the people who were there inside the aircraft, if there was more than one, is something which is yet unknown. The Indian Air Force is going to put out an official detail of the crash, why it happened, is something which can be a subject matter of the investigation, and once further information is relayed on the official handle of the Indian Air Force, then it can be relayed. But at this point in time, there is no information of any survivor from those on board the Indian Air Force Jaguar fighter aircraft as of now. Anisha?
Devankar, do we have any information coming in from the Churu authorities? Has anyone from the Rajasthan administration, the Churu administration, reached the site? What do we know about the civilian authorities who are responsible in situations like this?
Well, Anisha, as I mentioned to you, senior officials of the administration of Churu police are at the crash site. As of now, the information is that the mangled bodies of two people have been found at the crash site. This is the preliminary information that we have received so far. The Indian Air Force is yet to put out any official note on this crash. Why it happened, whether it was a technical issue or whether it was something other than that, is something which a court of investigation a court of inquiry can get into. But that is something which may happen over a period of time. At this point in time, the Indian Air Force is ascertaining details in this matter, and once those details are ascertained, then it is going to put out a note on its official handle, and thereafter it would be proper to put that across to the on the channel. But at this point in time, I can tell you that, Anisha, the people who were there in the vicinity rushed to the crash site. There was an attempt to save those on board of the Indian Air Force Jaguar fighter aircraft, but any survivors' information at this point in time has not been received.
All right.
These are the preliminary details that we have at India Today. Anish.
All right. Thank you for that, Devankar. Stay on with me. Shivani Sharma is also live with me on this story. Shivani, of course, this horrific crash has happened. Questions are going to be asked about what happened. What exactly are the steps that the authorities are taking currently to ascertain what happened at the situation? What do we know about what is happening on the ground?
Anisha, what we are learning is that this was a Jaguar twin-seater fighter jet. That means it was a fighter jet that is meant to train the pilots, and there was a pilot and a co-pilot who was being trained and a trainer who was training the pilot, and that means this was a trainee sortie. And Suratgarh was the airbase that from where this Jaguar fighter took off earlier today when it landed. It crashed in a village close to Ratangarh. And what the villagers have been telling the eyewitness of this crash, they say that there was a loud explosion and there was fire, there was a wreckage, and they could make out that this was a fighter jet. And what they also saw, though it is still to be ascertained, Anisha, that they could see two bodies out there. But we are waiting for confirmation from the Indian Air Force regarding this. What is the situation of the pilots on board? But what we are also learning through the sources, that it was a twin-seater fighter jet. It was a twin-seater Jaguar fighter jet that took off from Suratgarh, that happens to be on the western border. And you remember, Suratgarh happens to be one of the important air bases of Indian Air Force along the proximity of the western border that has been quite active since past few months. It also actively participated in the Operation Sindoor. And very important out here to note, Anisha, that this whole the wreckage is found on an empty field. That means the pilots on board, after they could make out that the fighter was to crash, they tried to minimize the casualty on ground. They took this wreckage they took the fighter jet towards a location where they could see that there was no habitation on ground. There was no casualty that was expected, and that's why we can see the wreckage falling on a empty field in Rajasthan. And as soon as the villagers, the locals there, they heard this explosion, they reported the authorities. The authorities are already on ground. The Indian Air Force officials are on ground along with the Indian Army. The local units out there, they've already moved to the whole location for the rescue operation that are still going on. We are waiting for more details from the Indian Air Force, and after the details we can give out more information. But Anisha, standard procedure after a crash is that a court of inquiry is ordered to know the reasons of the crash, and the investigations take usually some time. But we have to wait for this official court of inquiry to take place to know whether this was a technical glitch or some other reason that led to this crash. But certainly an unfortunate incident where on the western border, one Jaguar Air Force's fighter jet has crashed today. Okay. And what we can also hear from the sources is that they could see the body of the pilot out there in the wreckage. But we are still waiting for confirmation from the Indian Air Force on this, Anisha.
Okay. Shivani, if I may now divert your attention to this series of crashes that has happened. In this year alone, we had a crash in Gujarat, in Jamnagar in April, as a matter of fact. We had another crash in Haryana's Panchkula. Questions were asked even at that point about the safety and the maintenance of our Jaguar fleet. The Jaguars, of course, have been at the forefront of India's air defense systems for years. But that is exactly the question. Are we maintaining our fleet properly? Is it that the Jaguars, which have been our main defense, part of our main air defense for several years now, is there a problem with the maintenance of the fleet? Is there something that is being done about this post the earlier two crashes?
See, Anisha, there are always questions raised when a fighter crashes, and as you've also pointed out that there have been a number of crashes last year also, and most importantly that in Parliament also several questions were raised upon the maintenance of these fighters. And when the court of inquiry happens, only then we can know that whether this was a maintained or it was an old fighter. But certainly Jaguars, MiGs, other fighter jets, they have been the backbones of Indian Air Force's operations across domains and across the borders. So certainly there is also no doubt about the fact that Indian Air Force is awaiting more fighter jets. It needs new fighter jets, and there have been debates and a lot of concerns that have been raised right from the Indian Air Force chief that we need new fighter jets so that we can give away with the old aging fighter jets, but we have to wait for the investigations to go on and check whether the Jaguar fleet or the particular craft, it crashed due to a technical glitch or some other reason. But yes, this is a pertinent question that the Indian Air Force needs new fighter jets and its aging fleet needs some new fighter jets, and we all know about the Tejas Mark 1A project that has already got delayed. And very soon we are hearing that we'll be getting new fighter jets. But yes, the depleting strength of the Indian fighter jets has been a cause of concern or an issue of concern since past few years. And Jaguar, that happens to be one of the most potential fighter jet for the Indian Air Force, has been deployed along the western border. And this one also was also what we are learning was flying from Suratgarh Air Base. That happens to be another very important and a very sensitive Air Force fighter base along the western border, where it has been deployed for decades now. And Anisha, we are waiting for more confirmation on the situation of the pilots. That's very important to
my
know.
question
And
is
situation on ground where the rescue operations are still.
Shivani, my question is, this is now a very, very unfortunate incident. We are, from what you said and what the reports we are getting is that it is highly likely that the pilot at least has not survived. The question that must be raised is, this is now the third incident of a Jaguar crash in this year alone. My specific question to you is, was any inquiry done after the Panchkula and the Jamnagar crashes? What came out of those, and what have we learnt about how our fleets are working?
See, Anisha, when an inquiry happens after the, specifically when the Indian Air Force's fighter jets crash inquiry is done, the details are not always shared in the open domain due to the operational sensitivities of the issue. But yes, when the questions are raised in the parliament, then only the cause of these crashes come out. And if I talk about the details of the past crashes that have happened, there have been evidences that there were some technical glitches in the previous crashes, and also some kind of human errors that were also the reasons of the crashes. So we cannot specify in the particular crashes that what's the reason, but certainly there has been a question regarding the aging fleet of the Indian Air Force, though the Indian Air Force maintains the fact that it has been flying these fighters, and they have been very competent, and they have been very the fleet has been maintained properly by them, and only after the checks do they allow their pilots and their fighters to take these operations. But as I said, that the details of all these inquiries are not always made public because of the sensitivity of the nature of these fighter jets and their operations that they take on. But yes, there have been issues with certain fighters that we've been seeing, that there are a number of crashes of the MiGs that raised a lot of concerns also. And now the Jaguars also, this is, as you also mentioned, this is the third crash of the Jaguar in past few months. And after the investigation takes place, then only we can see that what was the reason. We can try and find out what was the reason and take some responses from the experts and also the Indian Air Force regarding why these crashes have been happening. Is there an issue with the maintenance of the fleet, or can we question the capabilities of these fighters? But right now we are still waiting for more operational details, more details and confirmation regard to this particular crash that has taken place today in Ratangarh of Rajasthan. From where what we are learning is that from Suratgarh, this was a twin fighter jet, the twin Jaguar, that was on a sortie, and it crashed in a village where we could see that the wreckage has been already found. The rescue operations are taking on ground with the assistance of the local authorities, the police out there. The pilots' bodies can be seen, but we are again saying that we are waiting for confirmation from the Indian Air Force.
Of course, Shivani, stay on with me. We will be keeping a very close eye on this, and we are going to wait for confirmation from official sources before making any comment about what has actually happened.